All right, so we're going to start off with an audio check here. Let us know if you can hear us. We have a beautiful shot of the Falcon 9 on the pad over there, but this is a status check live from the ITL Causeway at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. Again, let us know if you can hear us, because we've got less than an hour before this launch window opens here.
All right, everyone. Good evening, morning, night, afternoon, wherever you are around the world, and welcome to the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, where you are looking live at the Falcon 9 rocket sitting on Slick 40 as it prepares to launch on its mission to deliver the JCSat-18 or Kacific1 satellite. They are both the same, they just go by different numbers. So a single geostationary satellite that the Falcon 9 will be taking into a geostationary transfer orbit this evening. Our launch window today opens at 1910 EST, or 00 hours and 10 minutes UTC, which is just under an hour from now. The launch window extends for 1 hour and 28 minutes. SpaceX has the entirety of that window to use should they need to, but so far we have heard of no technical issues, no weather issues, absolutely nothing that would prevent an on-time liftoff today. The countdown net likewise has been very, very quiet. We had it up just before the 1 hour mark in the countdown. Quiet counts for SpaceX are very, very good. It means everything is progressing as scheduled. So they should be through the technical readiness poll to proceed down into their fueling poll, which will be coming up here at the T-minus 38 minute mark. This is, for those of you wondering, this is the third time that this particular Falcon 9 first stage will fly. It is booster 1056. It was previously used in May and July of this year to launch the CRS-17 and CRS-18 Dragon cargo resupply missions to the International Space Station. The booster was, according to NASA in May, originally earmarked for them for use for the CRS-19 mission, which launched just 11 days ago from the exact same launch pad, but either the booster itself was not ready or NASA had opted to not fly a booster for the third time on one of their missions, and that resulted in CRS-19 flying on a brand new booster and JCSat-18 getting this one. So third time this booster will be launched today. It will be attempting a landing on the autonomous spaceport drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, which is positioned roughly 630 kilometers downrange to the east of the launch site. The two payload fairings are brand new as well, but the fairing catcher ships Go Mystery and Go Mischief are also downrange, about 750 kilometers downrange to catch those payload fairings. So we will have a payload fairing recovery attempt today as well. Of course, the primary mission is to get the geostationary satellite Kacific1 or JCSat-18. They go same satellite that goes by two different names because it is actually a satellite that is jointly operated and funded by Sky Perfect of Japan and Kacific. So hence the two designations for the exact same satellite. That primary mission will take about 38 minutes to complete, so about 38 minutes from the time of liftoff until the satellite deploys into its geostationary transfer orbit. It is an absolutely gorgeous night. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit for you guys here because it is an absolutely gorgeous night. Crystal clear skies. That's our view if you were standing here with me. And then you can see the much better view that we are going to bring you, all nice and zoomed in. We also have a treat for you on this live stream as well. Not only will we bring you the entire mission, we do plan to, when we lose sight of the rocket here, we do plan to switch over instantaneously to the SpaceX stream. So if you are watching, you do not have to switch streams. You can stay with us for full mission completion. But we also are using a camera that has infrared capability. So once they are pretty high up and still on the first stage, we're going to go ahead and switch on the infrared and see what that brings us today. Should be a wicked cool shot. Das, you can want to explain it?
We're going to try that, Chris. We'll see how that goes. No promises.
I guess I'm the optimist of this group.
I'm on the hook for it working. So,
but Das, do you want to explain a little bit about why we wanted to do that and everything like that?
Sure. Why we could do what?
The infrared and why we wanted to try that.
Yeah, so we've got a night launch here. The sun has gone down just a little bit over an hour, probably a little bit under an hour ago, I guess. And a lot of times when we're here, we're watching the launch from the ITL Causeway is where we are today for Slick 40. You get to the point where it just becomes a little dot in the sky. Well, if you've ever seen the just before sunrise or just after sunset launches, you get that big illuminated gas cloud. As it turns out, you may or may not be able to see that in infrared as the rocket goes downrange when the visible light is only just a point in the sky. So we're going to attempt that today. It's not a FLIR camera, so don't expect colors or anything like that, but expect that we should at least be able to visualize some exhaust gases coming out the back of the rocket. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but hey, we're here to experiment on some stuff and share it with y'all while we're here.
Maybe we'll get to see some of those cold gas thrusters pulsing after the booster separates. It's not doing a boost back burn tonight. So when it separates, it's just on a parabolic coasting arc down to the drone ship. So we won't get any plume interaction,
right? Obviously,
but we might hopefully get a good infrared shot of the second stage lighting up.
We'll see what it looks like. I'm not sure.
For.
No promises, but at some point, hopefully it works out well. Again, everybody, thank you for joining us. What are we doing on time right now? It's 6:25, and our window opens at
7:10.
7:10. So what is it? Carry the 3, 35, 10 minutes. What is it? 45 minutes. 45 minutes.
Sounds about right.
Is that right?
Yeah. So we are about 12 minutes away from them getting into the fueling pole, and about 10 minutes away from the. Oh, I'm sorry, 8 minutes away from the fueling pole, and about 10 minutes away from the start of fueling for that opening of the launch window. The weather forecast that was issued by the 45th Weather Squadron of the Air Force showed a 90% chance of acceptable weather conditions. I believe clouds, maybe a stray shower were the primary concern for tonight, and there's absolutely none of that. It's a crystal clear sky, and the upper level winds were very, very calm on the on that forecast. So if you have questions, go ahead and throw them up in the chat here, and we will go ahead and get them answered. I know my boss jokingly said that if I don't answer your question, you're put into the running for a Tesla Cybertruck, availability pending. A nice joke, but maybe that'll get some questions in there. So yeah, if you do have questions, go ahead and put them up in chat, and we will go ahead and and we will go ahead and answer everything that you have. But one thing that we do want to mention is that tonight with the Falcon 9 is the first of 2 missions within 8 hours of each other. The Falcon 9 is scheduled to go at 7:10 p.m. Eastern time, or just after midnight at 0000 hours and 10 minutes UTC time. And that will be followed at 3:54 a.m. Eastern time, 8:54 Universal time, by the launch of Europe's Characterizing Exoplanets satellite on a Soyuz frigate rocket from the Guiana Space Center in French Guiana, a flagship mission for the European Space Agency, an incredibly important mission as well. NASASpaceflight will have a full forum and article coverage of that mission as well. And then, of course, later this week, the big launch for Boeing and United Launch Alliance and NASA, the uncrewed test flight of Starliner, one of 2 commercial crew vehicles for NASA and transportation of astronauts up to the International Space Station. So a kickoff to a fairly busy week in space, and of course that doesn't include anything that China or Russia might throw at us in a nice little surprise. They like to do that. So we will bring you all of those. And we will have a live stream as well for Starliner, and be able to bring you that throughout the week as well. The events for Starliner begin tomorrow, so be sure to check back with us throughout the day tomorrow, on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday, as we head toward that launch as well. But now back to this mission. So we do have a question from chat. Does NASA still not feel comfortable using a first stage for the 3rd time? And that's a good question, and it's one that wasn't really answered for us at the launch of CRS-19 11 days ago. As I mentioned, this booster NASA had originally said back in May was earmarked for the CRS-19 mission as well, but something changed. And that could be a variety of factors. It could have been NASA not wanting to do it. It could have been this particular booster needing a bit more refurb than had originally been intended. It could have just been you know, that the booster could have been ready, but it was just easier for SpaceX to use a new booster. It really could have been a variety of things, so not too sure exactly what that was, but it did seem to be a little bit of a weird backtrack from NASA, because they seem to be really enthusiastic about using a booster for the third time and the reuse that comes with SpaceX. So Rudy Zensky is asking, any idea why Atlas will drop Starliner on a suborbital trajectory? I know it's 13 tons, but why? So a variety of reasons, but basically the Atlas V and the dual engine Centaur upper stage, this is the heaviest payload that Atlas has launched, and it needed the dual engine Centaur to even get Starliner into a suborbital flight trajectory. The other main reason is a safety consideration, and it goes back to the space shuttle program. Actually, the space shuttles, when they launched, they did not actually inject into full orbit. They were actually suborbital when their engines cut off, and the orbiter came off of the external tank, and the orbiter then used its engines to raise the lower part of its orbit up above Earth's atmosphere. That was partly a safety consideration for the crew, so in case the shuttle orbiter's engines did not ignite on orbit, they were on a safe suborbital trajectory that would bring them back down for basically an abort once around landing. Starliner will have that safety feature built into it as well. But we are still actually trying to track down exactly what the suborbital trajectory Starliner will be injected to is. The shuttles were injected into 256 by 60 kilometer orbits, with 121 kilometers needed for actual orbit, so definitely suborbital. And Starliner will be a 180 kilometer orbit in terms of
Let's do a status check on that again and see if we can determine what the issue was. Stand by. All right, so like I said, we're still standing by. We're working a little bit of an issue there. Not sure what the hiccup was. We were still broadcasting, but it wasn't quite making it to YouTube, so it looks like it's good. Thank y'all for the patience. I apologize for the brief hiccup there, but we are back, and we're around 32 minutes right now from the opening of the window. Is everything still back online and good to go here?
Yeah, Chris says it's back.
Yeah.
It appears to be a Cape-wide issue, because at the same time it went down for us here, like everyone got kicked off of SpaceX's media nets to listen into the countdown, and the nets went dead as well, so everything seems to be coming up. So that appears to be a local, like an issue that affected everyone, not just us, but we do apologize for that. Yeah. But we are back, so if you have questions, go ahead and continue to put them up in the chat, and we will continue to answer them as we go through. We are currently checking with SpaceX to make sure that they because we said we're 32 minutes away from liftoff here. Right. So yeah, if you've got questions, go ahead and put them up in our chat, and we will go ahead and get them answered for you. We are checking with SpaceX actually to see if they did begin fueling the Falcon 9 for liftoff. No one heard that over the net, and SpaceX has not tweeted confirmation that they have fueled, but I do see some condensation on the rocket, which is usually a good indication that we are fueling. If you see some condensation, like right
down the side of it?
Yeah, like down the side of it. But we're working to get that confirmed for you. But again, no news is usually good news from SpaceX. So the quieter they are,
Right.
the more that means things are on track. So the fact that we haven't heard anything is not alarming, and the fact that SpaceX has not tweeted anything is also a good indicator that we are currently on track, but we're working to get that confirmed for you. So again, if you've got questions, go ahead and throw them up in chat so someone can forward them over to us here. But yeah, so for those of you who are just joining us, we are live here at the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station for the launch of the Falcon 9 rocket with the Kacific1 or JCSat-18 satellite. It is a single satellite that just goes by two names because two different organizations paid for it, and two organizations are operating it and sharing the overall cost of the mission and the launch as well. We are going to a geostationary orbit tonight, so Falcon 9 will drop the satellite off basically into a rough 37,000 by 300 kilometer orbit, and the satellite will use its onboard propellants and engines to raise its orbit up to the full geostationary belt before it will be activated. The satellite itself will provide broadband internet connectivity to East and Southeast Asia, as well as portions of the US state of Alaska. This will be a night launch for the Falcon 9, scheduled to go at 7:10 p.m. Eastern time here, about just under about 29 minutes from now. The weather is absolutely gorgeous here. There's a very, very light breeze, absolutely crystal clear skies. We should really have a good view of it for you today as Falcon 9 lifts off. Again, if you've got your questions, go ahead and throw them up in there so we can get them answered for you. Also, let us know where around the world you're watching from. I know right before we started, I saw Hawaii and France represented in there as well. We'd love to know where everyone around the world is watching from, because it's a rocket launch, guys. I mean, we'd be here no matter what time, but I know just like me, you guys get up and watch these things no matter what time of night they are. So please let us know. So we are seeing more venting toward the bottom of the Falcon 9, which is an excellent indication and good confirmation that they are indeed fueling up for liftoff, and that fueling probably began right on time. Again, we're just waiting for that confirmation from SpaceX to come in. So Das, what do we got over there?
Just working.
Just working. Can you pull up chat just to see if we've got any questions in there?
And give me 1 second to finish
Cool.
this up.
Cool. But yeah, I mean, and let us know too in chat. Well, your passion for space. Are you someone who thinks it's cool? Are you an aerospace engineer? Are you someone who's worked with the business? Are you someone in the Southeast Asia or Eastern Asia region for whom this satellite might really benefit you guys in terms of broadband connectivity and anything like that? Let us know. We'd love to share that. We're a global community here at NASA Spaceflight, so the more you can share your experiences with us and how these particular missions might actually benefit you, the better. You know, it's easy to get lost in the grandeur and the splendor of all of these launches when they actually, you know, lift off. But you know what we tend to really forget about are it's after we're done and after our excitement is done that the whole reason it launched begins.
The years of work before the launch to make it happen, and the years of work or the years of service of the mission after the launch. The launch is a point in time, right? But
Exactly.
the launch is not the mission. It was part of the mission, but it's not the whole shooting match. There's some more good questions here again, y'all. Did you get this one? Why is there a night launch tonight?
Nope, my Discord is not working, so
Yeah,
I'm glad
not
you
updating.
have yours.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
So why is it a night launch? I mean, we know when it's going cargo up to the ISS, right? We're doing the
Right.
Cargo Dragon. It has to launch when the ISS is in a certain position. But this is a communications satellite, so we get a different window for that, right? Why is it night versus the day?
Yeah, so it works almost the exact same way as the International Space Station does, right? This satellite needs to get to a specific point in space to enter its we're live streaming to get into a very specific slot right above a very specific part of Earth. So you have to basically you have to figure out when's it going to get there, right? When do we need it to plop into that spot? How long will it take the satellite itself to raise its orbit, assuming a nominal launch?
Right.
How long will the launch phase take? And you just keep working all of that backwards to the launch site. And for this particular mission, where it has to go over Southeast Asia and Eastern Asia, you work all of that back, including how long it'll take to get there, and you get an opening of the launch window at 1910 local time at your launch site.
Right. And we do have a bit of a launch window tonight. It's not an instantaneous launch like some of the supply missions.
So that's where we're different, right? Is because you have a 1 hour, 28-minute window that you can launch in, and the satellite months from now still gets there at exactly the same, at exactly the right moment, right? Whereas with the International Space Station, you have to launch in a single-second instantaneous window, or you won't catch it.
Right.
Because it is also moving. But here's the best part. We're not trying to catch anything.
Right.
We're just trying to, drive the car to the parking space,
right.
and arrive at a specific time.
We're trying to arrive at a hole in the sky, right?
Yeah.
And because we have the transfer orbit, the window we have to hit that hole is a little bit bigger, right?
Right. And actually, the car analogy is a good one. Like, if you think, like, I need to arrive at my destination at, let's say, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, right? And you punch it into your GPS, and your GPS says, okay, well, if you want to arrive at 1, you got to leave at 12:25.
Right.
So you go at 12:25.
Right.
Right. And that's what we're dealing with here as well.
All right. So there's another question here. Are we doing an RTLS tonight, or are we going out to the ASDS?
Yes, we are going out to the ASDS, the Autonomous Spaceport Drone Ship, which is named, the one they're using today is Of Course I Still Love You.
Right.
There are 2 now here at Cape Canaveral, Of Course I Still Love You and Just Read the Instructions, which they brought over and souped up in Louisiana. And then got it here last week. We just heard over the comm nets, so they're working again. JCSat-18 Kacific1 has on internal power, so everything is progressing perfectly, and that is our confirmation actually that we started fueling on time.
Right, and you can actually see some of the
window.
boil off there on the side now.
Yes.
Excellent.
I totally forget what the question was.
I think you answered it, actually.
Did I answer it completely?
You're talking about, was it the ASDS or was it an RTLS?
So it's the ASDS.
And of course, about 600 something kilometers?
About 630 kilometers downrange for this one, yes.
Gotcha,
which is dead normal for a GeoSat launch like this one.
And I don't know this one off the top of my head, but what is the thrust to weight ratio of the rocket tonight?
It's very high. The Merlin 1D, the 9 Merlin 1D engines produce roughly 1.4 million pounds of thrust.
Wow.
At liftoff for the Falcon 9 in their Block 5 configurations. It is an incredible thrust to weight ratio. I believe it's up around 1.5, 1.7, something like that, which is pretty high.
All right.
Versus like the Atlas V with no solid rocket boosters, which is like a 1.1.
It sort of like crawls off the pad, right?
Barely rises off the launch pad.
You get down to like Saturn V levels of crawling off the pad. All right, so getting some more questions here. We got that one. Let's see here. Got that. We got that. I actually think that I am caught up on the questions that I can see here. How do they catch a fairing at night? That's a good question.
So they catch it the same way they catch it during the day. Visual is a very small part of this piece, right? The fairings are communicating down with the recovery ships. The recovery ships are monitoring them and their beacons as they're descending under parafoil toward the ships. So that's how they can catch them at night if they can't see them. Now, of course, there are gigantic floodlights on the ships and everything. So when they do get low enough, there's a visual component. But in terms of actually driving the ships underneath their respective fairings that they're trying to catch, it's all based on the telemetry that they're pinging down and talking to one another.
Can you imagine being a crew member on the ship and like looking up backwards and there's spotlights pointing in the edge and all of a sudden there's like, is it? Oh, there it is, there it is, there it is.
Here it comes.
There's this fairing coming down out of the darkness. I can't even imagine how cool that would be to see.
Right? It's like that scene in Jurassic Park where the T-Rex comes out of the darkness, right? Like, except slightly less terrifying, you know? Like.
So again, we are here live out at the Cape. We are actually at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station here. Because this is a launch going from SLC-40, SLC-40 is actually one of the pads that's over on the CCAFS side of the things, as opposed to like 39A, 39B, the old shuttle pads that are on the NASA side of things.
And the Atlas pad is also on Kennedy Space Center property, technically.
How does that work?
Kennedy owned, Cape leased.
Okay.
Basically, yeah. When you drive around all the road, and there's our big T-minus 20 minute event, right on time.
Look at that, y'all.
Right on time. So what you are seeing is the gaseous oxygen venting out of the first stage of the Falcon 9. So the densified liquid oxygen that they have poured into the rocket. So far, it boils off, right? Even though it's super cold, and even though we load it really fast in that load and go procedure,
right,
where they actually stop fueling about 3 minutes before launch, and that's it. There's no top off, like it's fuel and go. But it does boil off, so they have to vent it out of the tanks to maintain pressure and to free up that space for the actual additional liquid oxygen load that will be pumped in.
Right.
So right now, liquid oxygen and RP1 kerosene are flowing into the first stage of the Falcon 9, and kerosene only is flowing into the second stage. Coming up here in about another minute and a half, that RP1 kerosene load into the second stage will stop and go into what's known as stable replenish mode, and then they will start loading the densified liquid oxygen into the second stage. So first stage gets oxygen and kerosene together. The second stage gets them kind of staggered. And that's just the best way they can do it for the thermal conditioning of the vehicle during the fueling process. Of course, thermal conditioning, very, very important for the Falcon 9 because of its load and go. It's a very fast fueling procedure versus all the other rockets in the world, which have a very nice, slow fueling process, which allows their tanks to acclimate very slowly, whereas the Falcon 9 is just like, yep, no, here we go.
Just go.
Yep, here we go. Yep. That's good. If you've got questions, keep throwing them up in chat for us. Even if you don't think your question, I mean, even if you're hesitant about asking a question, please ask it to us. Even if you think maybe it's been asked before, but I didn't hear the answer, ask it again. We'll answer it again. That is what we're here for.
We've been here for an hour. We have plenty of time to fill with the talking.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't know about you, Das, but like my teachers through middle and elementary and middle school always had to call my parents in for a conference that Christopher is not the teacher. Yeah, that stuck. And also Christopher needs to learn how to use his inside voice.
Inside voice.
You know, I love to talk. So yeah, definitely give us your questions. Any question you've got. You know, if it's about tonight's mission, that's great. If it's about another mission that's coming up this week too, go ahead and ask it.
Yep.
You know, the insane thing today, Das, was that while we were at the pad doing the live stream from there earlier today, around 2:30 in the afternoon, our colleague Mike Deep was actually in the clean room seeing the European Space Agency's Solar Orbiter mission, which is launching on an Atlas V in February. So, I mean, it's all go at the Cape here this week.
All right.
Really all go.
So we get this one just about every time we have a launch, but the big towers next to the rocket, right?
Yes.
What are the big towers for? We can clearly see those white, they're sort of like, they look like oil derricks sort of things, but they got the white rods on top. What are those for?
So they were not needed today, thankfully, but Florida is a stormy little place. Florida loves lightning. We have at times been called the lightning capital of the world, and you don't want lightning striking your multi-million-dollar spacecraft, your multi-million-dollar rocket, especially if it's fueled. We know Russia has different rules on that. The Soyuz, this year, a Soyuz was actually struck by lightning when it was launching from the Plesetsk Cosmodrome. It just kept going because it's Russian, and that's what they do. But here, we definitely want to protect all of our payloads and our rockets from the pretty dangerous and hazardous lightning that we do get here in Florida from time to time. So those are what those huge towers are on the side. There are actually wires strung between those towers and a little hole in those wires that the Falcon 9 rises through.
Right.
So when it lifts off today, when it clears those lightning towers, that a little while after that is when you'll hear the person calling out the launch data say Falcon 9 is pitching downrange.
Right.
Because it can't start pitching downrange until it's clear of those lightning towers and the associated wires with them as well. And all of the pads here at the Cape have these lightning towers. Most of them look exactly like the ones you're looking at here. The Delta IV rocket, unfortunately, its view is blocked by a tree from where we are, but the Delta IV rocket, which we'll see in June of next year, has very different looking lightning towers, but they do the exact same thing.
Gotcha. And I'm mad props to Chris here, because I'm running around the camera looking at stuff, shining lights at stuff, pressing buttons and plugging cables and this stuff. And Chris is just stone cold. He just keeps talking, and he doesn't wonder what, he probably wonders what DOS is doing.
Well,
but,
well, also kudos to DOS for CRS-19, who's telling me via text to press a certain button, and I'm having to keep talking and go like, I don't know, like, where's the blue button? Like, I don't see it. Definitely
okay.
easier having another person here.
So if you just saw the little screen change there, that's what I was testing. That is our ability to switch over to the SpaceX stream whenever we lose a good visual here from the Cape, so we can continue following along with the mission even when our cameras from the ITL Causeway aren't showing anything.
And that's key for you guys. You do not have to go anywhere. We will have visual from our cameras here on the ground until we lose them. We're going to try to bring you an infrared image of it as well.
Don't promise too much.
DOS is like really trying to play this down. I'm going to be like Elon and be like, we're bringing you an IR stream. We're at least going to see how it does and how it works out, because that could be a really cool thing to incorporate into night launches in the future if it works.
We're always trying to push the limits here, to bring you interactive content from places that we can't have 2,000 people. Right?
Exactly. And when we lose sight of it with our cameras, here, we will switch seamlessly over to the SpaceX stream, so you don't have to go anywhere. We'll have full coverage of it through payload separation.
Theoretically.
Yeah, again, DOS doesn't like it when I promise things, but you know.
Well, no, it's interesting because this is all sort of a new thing for us, right?
It is, yes.
The last time we did CRS-19, I was back at my studio in Charlotte, North Carolina, so I felt like I had a lot more control on things. And here I'm like frantically changing tabs on my phone, trying to check to make sure everything's good. So again, y'all, every time this happens, right, when we get down to T-minus 2 minutes, we may start to get a little bit of video drop. I hope the video doesn't completely drop, but you get all the photographers and everybody jumping on the internet. We're out at the Cape. This is the Air Force Base. The Cape is actually a natural wildlife refuge, and so there's not a lot of cell phone towers around here, right? There's not a lot of bandwidth for us to use. In fact, we're
standing on a very tiny little strip of land surrounded by water. The alligators are watching, in case anyone is wondering. They are. Anyway, we are about 13 minutes away from the opening of the window and the launch here, so they have stopped the main fueling of the RP-1 kerosene into the second stage. That's in stable replenish, and densified liquid oxygen is now flowing into the second stage as well. Fueling of the first stage with liquid oxygen and RP-1 kerosene continues in tandem, and again, that will continue on until about the T-minus 3 minute mark, when fueling will wrap up and everything will begin to be closed out for flight on the ground side.
You can sort of see that right now. You see the little boil off going to the left there, but there's almost like a waterfall coming off this side.
There is, and you can see that creeping farther and farther up the rocket, right, as we've been talking. But just so to give you sort of an orientation of what we're looking at, what you are actually looking at is the transporter erector, the big gray piece that the rocket actually sits on when it rolls out to the pad, what brings it vertical and what throws back away from it at T0. The white little dome at the top is actually the back of the payload fairing, so we actually can't see the Falcon 9 rocket itself from this particular vantage point.
There's some stuff in the way.
There's some stuff in the way, but but you will get a great view of this thing when it lifts off. Here
we'll know when it lifts off.
About 11.5 minutes.
That sounds good.
Yes.
And apparently there's a telephone pole or something. It's a good thing we weren't
like 10 more feet that way.
Yes. When we set up the camera, we had to move to a specific position, and we're lucky that telephone pole wasn't another like couple millimeters to the left. It's dark out there.
The things you only notice an hour into the stream, right?
Do we know from SpaceX whether or not they're going to try to show the recovery of the fairings, or is it just going to be a tweet or something?
No, it'll be a tweet.
It'll be a tweet.
It'll be a tweet and confirmation that they got them. The payload fairing, so the booster, right? This is a good thing, right? So the payload fairing separate only about a minute after the first stage separates, right? But whereas the first stage will land about 8.5 minutes after liftoff on the drone ship, because it's just plummeting down under its own power and using its engines to stop very quickly and close to the drone ship, the fairings will actually pop parafoils and parachutes and gently glide down toward the fairing catcher ships, and they will be caught roughly 45 minutes after liftoff, and that's even after the Kacific1 JCSat-18 satellite separates from the top of the Falcon 9. So well outside of when they'll be broadcasting for this particular one. It also comes down to logistics, right, of what they've got in terms of live broadcast. and what they're able to do with that. But again, if you're just joining us, we are about 10 minutes away from the launch of the Falcon 9. The payload today is the Kacific1 JCSat-18 satellite. It's the same satellite that goes by two names because it is jointly owned by SkyPerfect of Japan and Kacific. And it is a broadband telecommunications satellite that is going to geostationary orbit. The Falcon 9 will take it into a geostationary transfer orbit, meaning that when it pops off the top of the Falcon 9, its orbit will be roughly 37,500 kilometers by 350 kilometers. So, and then the satellite itself will use its propellant and engines and thrusters to raise the lower part of that orbit up to the geostationary belt before it starts operation. And that's a very normal profile for a lot of these large geostationary satellites. The rocket does 95% of the work getting them there, but then the satellite has to do the remaining 5% on its own. And again, just under 10 minutes now to go. Everything continues to go well. We have a very quiet net from SpaceX, and quiet is good. We since the SpaceX stream is now live, we are able to bring you that net as well. So we will continue. So you should be able to hear everything that we hear now as we head toward launch today. And Das and I will be quiet at about a minute to go, and
unless something's not working, and then I'm going to be really loud, but
and then he'll be loud. But we'll be quiet for the last minute and let you listen into the countdown net through most of the liftoff phase until you hear us start screaming and hollering in happiness at what we're seeing here.
Absolutely.
Any other questions before we get into the real business end of the count?
Well, I was going to remind people watching right now, remember, it's not just the live stream ways that you can keep up with missions like this.
Yes.
The photographers earlier today set out the remote cameras. So I think remote pickup is tomorrow morning.
Yes.
So tomorrow morning, be on the lookout for some of those remote camera shots, those crazy engine shots where you have a camera positioned so close that it's not safe for a human to be there during the launch, right?
Brady Keniston,
you got it.
Nate Barker, and Michael Baylor all set remotes. And Nate is actually shooting the launch from off site today, as is Brady, but Michael, Das, and I are here on base to bring it to you.
Yeah, over at the ITL Causeway. So also the mods, the people watching on YouTube, will put some links to follow those photographers on Twitter. I also think somebody's doing like some behind the scenes stuff. So
we've got some cool stuff for YouTube.
Yeah, I'm not spoiling anything, am I?
No, we got some cool stuff.
Good.
If it all works, we got some cool stuff for YouTube.
Tonight we'll probably have some streak shots coming out of the photographers. We've got people all over the Space Coast, basically.
And of course, our mission preview is up on NASASpaceflight.com, as is our full live forum coverage as well. We are now just approaching the 7-minute mark, so we should hear that engine chill down has begun here momentarily. That is when, in order to thermally condition the engines for liftoff, so they are not shocked by the cold, super cold propellant suddenly hitting them at T0, they actually drain back some of the densified liquid oxygen into those engines to cool them down, so that when they receive their start commands at the T-3 second mark, they're good to go. So again, we are just waiting to hear the final milestones of our countdown here today. Just going to take a quick break and we'll be back in a couple seconds. Just got to make sure everything's configured for the actual launch.
Yes.
Focus. Manual focus.
Yeah.
Does this...
Yes, you got it.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
All right, so on our end, Das is getting the secondary camera. Yes, you heard that right, the secondary camera all set up I believe that's the camera I call the DOS zoom.
The P1000.
Yes, yes, the DOS zoom. You'll understand if everything works. You'll understand when you see the videos of our launch replays. But everything on our end is configured for launch, and we are about 5.5 minutes away from the anticipated liftoff. We should be getting close now in our countdown to the partial retraction of the transporter erector. The TE, as it is called, retracts back 80 to 88.5 degrees first, and then at T0, when the Falcon 9 actually lifts off, that's when it throws back to its 45-degree angle to protect all of its structures and propellant lines and everything from the exhaust of the Falcon 9. So again, we are just waiting to hear that some of these particular call-outs, but everything continues to go well at this point. And apologies, guys, it does appear that we had a little bit of a hiccup there in the stream, but it does appear that it's back again.
Audio buzz, it sounded
like. But we are back again. We are now about 4.5 minutes away from the anticipated liftoff of the Falcon 9 here today. We are launching from Space Launch Complex 40. This is the third time that this particular booster will fly. It previously launched the CRS-17 and CRS-18 missions in May and July of this year, respectively. Definitely into the business end of the countdown. The nets continue to be very quiet, which overall is usually a good sign. Assuming they're working for us. We did hear them say something, so we know they're working. So they're just being super quiet today, which again is very good. About 3.5 minutes to go now. If you do still have questions, please go ahead and put them into the chat. We have people relaying them to us here to go over with you, and we will have some time after the launch. The primary launch phase is done to continue to answer some of those questions. And there we go, they are talking on the net. The liquid oxygen load into the first stage has been completed and is closed out and ready for flight. That is an excellent call to hear. It also means that even though we did not hear the call out over the net, that engine chill down began as expected, and that they are headed toward TE retract into its 88.5 degree location. Again, the primary payload for this mission is Kacific-Sat, or JCSat-18. It's the same satellite that just has two different names because it is actually co-owned, co-financed, and co-operated by the two different companies. Each one of them has their own name for the satellite. This is not the first time that the Falcon 9 has launched a JCSat before, but it is the first time that SpaceX is collaborating with Kacific. So another tick in the box for SpaceX, as they say.
Stage 2 lock load is closed out.
The liquid oxygen...
And vehicle's on internal power.
Vehicle is on internal power, and liquid oxygen load into the second stage has been completed and is closed out. We are under 2 minutes to go. So from here on out, guys, we're going to be relatively more quiet on our end as Das and I operate some cameras and just get everything ready to be able to track the rocket and the vehicle as it ascends today.
All right, yeah, so from about here on out, there's not going to be much we can do. We are going to focus on making sure that we capture this. So if we get a hiccup in the stream or anything like that, we definitely apologize, but we will react to that as we can. But we're going to focus on getting this recorded for you so we can have the video regardless of what happens.
Does that mean it's recording?
That's recording, yes.
Oh, it was recording already.
Yes, it is recording.
Oh, I stopped it. Oh,
the
damn.
entire thing, yeah.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
Falcon 9 is in startup, T-minus 1 minute and counting.
T-minus 1 minute. All right, Chris, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, I'm gonna switch.
Yes.
Just give it a try.
Yep.
We'll see.
And remember, guys, too, you don't have to go anywhere. As it starts to pass out of visual range for us, we will switch over to the SpaceX webcast for you.
Go for launch.
Go for launch.
There are some clouds overhead now.
You have IR.
T-minus 15
True.
seconds.
Was it 30?
10,
Nope.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
Vehicle is pitching downrange. Stage 1 propulsion is nominal. Falcon 9 is supersonic.
What a gorgeous launch.
Falcon 9 is experiencing maximum aerodynamic pressure.
So that's through max Q. Very, very, very good. Well, lost it, DOS. Oh, no, got it back, got it back.
Have back engine chill.
Go IR.
I did. It's having a little trouble focusing. Oh. Ooh, I lost it completely.
It's clouds for sure.
Yeah. Can we switch over? So Falcon 9 has passed behind the clouds from our vantage point. We are switching the live stream over to SpaceX's
Pico.
to bring it to you.
Stage separation is confirmed.
Stages have separated.
And back ignition.
And we have ignition on the second stage.
So we got SpaceX.
Cool. Cool. So you should be seeing.
First and second stage are on a nominal trajectory.
So second stage engine has ignited. The second stage is on a nominal trajectory. Continuing to take Kacific1 and JCSat-18 to their geostationary transfer orbit, while the first stage is now on a parabolic coast down toward the drone ship. Of course, I Still Love You, about 650 kilometers downrange from the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. You can still hear the rocket.
Oh yeah, you can still hear it.
Yeah, you can hear it popping in the atmosphere. You know, the cloud cover, that was gorgeous, Doc.
Yeah, it was.
Like,
Fairing separation is confirmed.
fairing separation confirmed, so the fairings are now on their way back as well for potential recovery. And a good thing to note here with the fairings, even if the Go Mystery and Go Mischief do not catch them, but they do deploy their parachutes and their parafoils, and they do gently splash down into the Atlantic, the ships can fish them out of the water for recovery and reuse.
Acquisition of signal Bermuda.
Landing in the water is not a problem for recovery and reuse. It just takes them a little bit longer because of the saltwater corrosion and everything. So to sort of recap so far, we've had a gorgeous launch so far and successful launch so far of the Falcon 9. The second stage is still firing to take the payload into orbit. The booster and the fairings are on their way back for recovery. Yeah. And you should be seeing that right now. What you are seeing is the glow of the Merlin MVAC engine. That's the engine on the second stage that was actually inside the interstage, the black part of the Falcon 9 first stage when it launched here just a few minutes ago. Gorgeous, gorgeous golden coloring. Look at that. Look at that. Wow. All right. So we are going to continue to bring you this launch as but what we were saying there, Doss, is that cloud deck was absolutely gorgeous. Yeah. The Falcon 9 kept disappearing and reappearing, and even though I had my eyes trained on the camera most of the time, like I could see the flashes of light on the ground, like as the light level changed.
Stage continued to follow a nominal trajectory.
As everything changed, that was actually more gorgeous than if it was a crystal clear sky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it because it almost serves like the cloud serves sort of a filter.
Yeah.
So as you get a little bit of cloud cover between you and the exhaust of the rocket, you can almost see the exhaust a little bit better, like a little bit more detail in the exhaust. So.
Oh, absolutely gorgeous. The first stage is continuing what they said there to follow a nominal trajectory. What that means is just that everything is going well on the second stage. What you are seeing on your screen now is split screen. On the left-hand dark side, that is the onboard camera for the first stage.
Stage 1 SDS has safe.
We should be seeing the entry burn very, very soon. The automated flight termination system on the first stage has safed and shut down ahead of the landing process. And there it goes. We can actually see it from here. Oh my God, we can see it from here. Like 600 kilometers downrange.
I don't know.
We can see it. Oh my God. Never gets old. And done.
Yeah, I was trying to get it, but you could see the entry burn.
Yeah, you could see the entry burn clear as day from here. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Okay, that was cool. Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's literally 600 kilometers downrange.
That's like a long
400
way.
Miles away, and we saw that clear as day. Second stage, still firing, continuing to do its job. Again, we get really excited about the booster landings and everything. They are really cool to see and witness, but first and foremost, of course, we are watching that second stage because it's carrying the whole reason this mission launched. So as we prepare for first stage landing, just keep that in mind. Second stage still doing its job absolutely perfectly, taking Kacific-Sat and JCSat-18 into orbit. They are, of course, one satellite with just two different names.
Stage 1 entry transonic.
So the first stage has dropped below the speed of sound and is in terminal guidance. The visuals are just beautiful on like of what we're watching now. Unfortunately, we can't see the landing burn. That would be even cooler if we could see it that far away, but it's way over the horizon.
Yeah, it's 630 kilometers.
Earth is round.
Because the Earth is round.
Landing burns. The Stage 2's autonomous flight termination system has also safed, which is good. It's nearing terminal guidance, which is the final guidance program to get it into the correct orbit for its coast phase. And we have had engine shutdown. I heard landing leg deploy. I heard them say MECO 1 for the second stage. So the second stage is in orbit. Here it comes onto the drone ship, the first stage.
Nominal parking orbit insertion.
Stage 2 is in a nominal orbit.
The camera's not showing much. What is it? I hear people clapping though. Yep.
Falcon 9 has landed! Yes! Yeah. Oh, look at that, dead center! Almost dead center on the drone ship! Nice! Falcon 9's first stage is on the drone ship. The second stage with the payload is in a good parking orbit as it coasts before its reignition. So far, an absolutely awesome and perfect launch. But the launch is not over yet. We still have about 24 minutes to go before the payload separates. So if you have questions about this mission, keep throwing them in chat. We're going to keep this going as long as we have questions to answer, as long as we have the ability to keep talking and not just repeat ourselves endlessly.
Absolutely, yeah.
But man, that was absolutely gorgeous.
I love the sound. I mean, Chad, how was the sound for y'all? I hope that, I hope you saw the launch, because I don't even know yet. But it's okay.
Yeah.
But if the launch video actually got out, how was the sound there?
You know, the sound was super intense where we are, because the winds were actually blowing the sound waves toward us.
Right.
I mean, that was a very intense sound for launch for a Falcon 9 from here.
It sounds so good. I always say it sounds like it's ripping the atmosphere apart, and that's almost what's happening.
Almost.
There's so much energy behind that rocket, pushing that payload out of the atmosphere up into orbit, and it's just saying, get out of the way, atmosphere, and it comes over here and smacks us around the eardrums.
And well, I couldn't have said that better. And I mean, what's really cool too is you could hear the sound changing as it broke through the various cloud levels, as the clouds muffled it, and then it came back and muffled it and came back. It was so cool.
It's so cool.
Like,
for a bit it was just a dot going across the sky.
Yeah.
You could sort of see it, and then it would appear for a second, then it would disappear, and it would appear for a second.
And then it really went behind some clouds, and even the IR lost it. I think the IR worked well. Tell us how you thought that worked. Because if you guys thought it worked, we'll try to do it again.
Yeah, I mean, hey, it is.
Yeah, but I mean, Das, that was the first time you actually got to see a landing burn that far away,
down.
right?
Oh, yeah.
Or not a landing burn, the entry burn that far down.
I mean, it looked like a tower or something off in the distance, but it was dropping like it's supposed to. So
there was one earlier this year where it launched just before moonrise.
Right.
And by the time it started doing its entry burn, the moon had risen. And it was just like, if you hold your hand fully out in front of you, it was like a finger length away from the moon as it came down. It was just so gorgeous.
All right. So like gorgeous. We said, we're looking for some more relayed questions here. It seems like there's a lot of chat happening on my rinky-dink little cell phone here. There's no way that I could keep up with chat in real time.
Which, unfortunately, what we discovered is that we can't have YouTube open on our phones, because then it will play the live stream on a delay back and echo, so we can't see the chat.
So there's other things we're working with here. Being able to keep up with things, but we've got some people relaying some questions. So if there are any questions, we're sort of standing by looking to see if there's anything else we can answer here. Again, we are out at the Cape. We're not co-opting a video from, well, I guess we are right now actually. But during the launch, that was us. Those are our cameras out here. We had just right here with NASASpaceflight, I think we had 4 different cameras. We were running 2 video cameras. Michael Baylor's here with us as well. Michael, did you do a streak or what'd you do?
Michael did a streak, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, Michael was working on a streak back behind us as well.
We've got Brady and Nate off site as well. Yeah. Oh, so cool. But yeah, if we're gonna take a quick break, just and we'll be back. Yeah.
All right. There we go. Welcome back.
Indeed, welcome back. We're not seeing the relay of any questions there for us. So Das and I are going to go ahead and wrap up our live stream. Here, you can continue to follow NASA Spaceflight. I'm at NASA Spaceflight on Twitter. I'm at ChrisG_NSF.
I'm at K Space Academy, like the letter K, then Space Academy. Not a space like the space bar. That happened to me once.
Really?
Yeah, I had a little Kerbal booth at Denver Comic-Con, and I registered over the phone, and I said, oh yeah, well, I'm Kerbal Space Academy, and I show up in the sign, you know how they put it on the back of the booth? It was Kerbal, and then a space, and Academy. And I was like, really? Really?
That's like the old joke, where do the astronauts hang out? At the space bar.
At the space bar, thank you. Yeah, but K-Space Academy.
It was a pleasure bringing this to you again. I can't wait to go through the chat and see where everyone was watching from around the world. The next live stream event that we currently have planned is the launch of Starliner on its uncrewed orbital test flight, which is currently slated to occur Friday morning at 0636 EST, which is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 11:36 UTC.
Right.
And that is also an instantaneous window, as we discovered today in an email from them. It is a technical 20-minute window.
Okay.
But there is only one instantaneous launch opportunity they are targeting with
no
the
time
Atlas.
to recycle.
So no time to recycle or anything like that, which is a little different than how the Atlas has done station missions before, where it's had some options in the window. But anyway, that's our next scheduled live stream.
Yep.
Please, if you have not already, please subscribe to our channel here and hit that notification button so you know when we go live. I promise you we do not go live for superfluous reasons. It's always good rocket fun.
Like us eating lunch or whatever.
Yeah, like that's not, no one, I don't even want to see that.
If we're live, there's a rocket or a spacecraft within sight distance.
Doing something.
Like we can see it.
So please subscribe and turn on those notifications. Give us some likes. And head on over to NASASpaceflight.com for all of the continuing mission coverage, and make sure to pay attention to the main NASA Spaceflight Twitter account at NASA Spaceflight for information on the successful completion of the launch of JCSat-18 or Kacific1, depending on which company you talk to.
It's a very Kerbal. No, once again, it's a Kerbal thing, right? It starts with a K. The Kerbals start everything with a K, and I'm like, Kacific? Is that like Pacific with a K?
Yes, which is exactly how I figured out how to pronounce it. I hope I'm right. I might be wrong.
So, Chris, I've switched the camera back over here. It is the live stream, the live view of the best sort of pad you want to see at about T plus 16 minutes here. It is an empty launch pad.
A happy, empty launch pad.
That's what we like to see. So once again, that was JCSat-18.
Yes.
Kacific1, SpaceX, still standing by for that final separation.
Yes,
so the mission's
there's still
not done.
one more burn that the second stage has to do, and then the satellite will separate and be on its way, and that will be mission complete. And then later tonight, later tonight, we have the launch of the European Space Agency's planet hunting satellite called Cheops, characterizing exoplanets. That is launching from South America on a Soyuz frigate rocket.
Right.
That'll be a 4.5-hour launch.
Wow.
Because it's actually deploying numerous satellites and has to change its orbital inclination after it deploys the first one. And altitude.
It's like the clown car of satellites. The satellites just keep hopping off the top of the...
So that's going to be, but that is a very important flagship mission for ESA. NASA Spaceflight will have that coverage for you as well. Not a live stream, but all the mission coverage and minute-by-minute play for you as well. Then we have Starliner at the end of the week here from the Cape. But we are not done at the Cape after that for the year. SpaceX still has one more in store for us, which is the second launch of operational Starlinks on either the 30th or the 31st of December.
There's so many Starlink launches, it's beginning to become confusing which launch we're talking about, because they keep stacking them up.
Especially when you get the media accreditation, you're like, which one's this for? But anyhow, it's all good. It's a good problem to have.
It is a good problem to have. Too many launches. And hey, I'm going to say one more time. I always say this. Launches are awesome, right? And it's one thing to watch the launch here on YouTube. We're so glad you're able to join us. But if you ever get an opportunity to make it out to see one of these launches in person, there are so many different public viewing opportunities. There's ones you pay for. There's free opportunities. You can see them from all over the Space Coast here. It's so worth, if it's a weekend, you're off work or whatever, come down to the Cape, see if you can watch a launch. I know that that's a lot to say because there's people watching all over the world, but it's a family vacation. You live in Montana and you come to the Cape, or you come to Disney World or something. Sneak over here and maybe align your vacation with a launch, because it really is a thing to see. So
and with 24 Starlink missions, the launches of the first crew launches since 2011, SpaceX still has government missions and,
Yep.
and commercial missions. So does the Atlas next year and the Delta. Odds are, when you look at how many things are scheduled to launch from the Cape next year, odds are no matter what week you pick, you might get lucky. And I'm going to say might because I'll never promise a rocket launch.
Chris, I have to say that, like, every time I do a stream, we watch a launch. I used to live up in Georgia, right?
Yeah.
When shuttle was still flying.
And you could see them.
Well, I could have, but I never did.
Ah.
Because, oh, well, there's one in a couple months. I'll go to the next one. Oh, I'm busy this weekend.
yeah.
Oh, I can't. No, I don't want to drive down right now. And I never came down to see a shuttle launch. Of all the things, never just
see.
saying, you know something, this is something I want to see. This is something I'm interested in going down. Just for years, I missed shuttle launches. Just, yeah, I'm busy, whatever. So I have to say that every stream, if you ever get an opportunity, it's something you can do. I highly recommend coming in and feeling a launch in person.
Because that's it. It's the feeling it
Absolutely.
that gets you. But anyway, that's going to do it for us here from Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. Again, the mission still ongoing. Falcon 9 in a coast phase right now before reignition of the second stage and ultimate deployment of the satellite. But I am Chris Gephardt, Assistant Managing Editor of NASASpaceflight. I will be with you for the rest of the week for other exciting spaceflight adventures here at the Kennedy Space Center.
I'm DOS. I'm the guy who's going to press the button so that the stream stops here. That's what I do.
That's DOS. He does more. He's being humble. But anyway, again, thank you so much for all of your support and for watching our stream today. We really do hope you enjoyed it, and we'll be back to bring you more later in the week.
All right, y'all. We're shutting it down. Thanks again for joining us here.